She pointed a gun right at my 7-year-old daughter's face, just because of an unpaid HOA fine. I froze for a second, trying to believe what I was seeing. Karen, our so-called HOA president, stood on my driveway, shaking with rage, yelling, "Pay your dues or I'll make you leave this neighborhood for good." My daughter, Emma, was clutching her teddy bear, tears running down her cheeks. I stepped forward slowly, hands up, trying to calm her. "Put the gun down, Karen, this isn't how you handle late payments." But she didn't listen. Her eyes were wild, like she had something to prove. This woman had been after me for months. It started with petty warnings: grass too long, trash bins out too early, mailbox not painted, community white. Then came the fines, stacked up every week, fake letters, threats. But this, pulling a gun on a child, that crossed every line. When the police arrived, called by none other than Karen herself, she screamed, "He threatened me. He pointed something at me and scared my life." The officer looked at me, confused, because I was standing there empty-handed with my daughter crying behind me. "Sir, we got a call that you were aggressive toward your HOA representative," he said. I just smiled faintly and said, "Check the camera on the garage. You'll want to see who pointed what." Karen's expression shifted fast. She stepped back, whispering, "You can't record me without my consent. That's illegal." I didn't even answer. I just nodded toward the small red light blinking above the garage door. The officer looked at her, then back at me. Something in his eyes said he already knew what kind of person she was. But before he could act, Karen pulled another stunt. She grabbed the officer's radio and started yelling into it, "Back up. This man's dangerous." The officer snatched it back instantly, telling her to calm down, but she wasn't stopping. She wanted to play victim again, to twist every truth. I knew right there, this was far from over. Because what Karen didn't know was, I wasn't just a homeowner struggling with fines. I had a history she'd regret discovering. "You aimed a gun at my little girl, Karen," I whispered under my breath as the flashing lights reflected off my window. "You just aimed your life straight at mine." That night, I didn't sleep. Emma kept waking up, terrified that Karen might come back. Every sound outside made her jump. I sat beside her bed, holding her tiny hand, promising her everything was okay, even though it wasn't. Karen wasn't just crazy, she was dangerous. And the worst part, she thought she was untouchable. By morning, I went straight to the HOA office to settle this face to face. Karen was already there, sipping coffee behind the front desk like she owned the place. "You again," she sneered. "If you think you can scare me with your fake footage, good luck. My cousin's on the city council." I stood there, silent for a moment, just studying her. Then I leaned forward and said calmly, "You think your cousin can save you from pulling a gun on a child?" Her smile faded a little, but she still tried to act tough. "You have no proof that was real," she said. "Could have been a toy." That's when I showed her my phone. I hit play. The video from my garage camera filled the room with her voice screaming, "I'll shoot." Her eyes went wide. She grabbed the phone, trying to snatch it from my hand, but I pulled it back. "Don't worry," I said softly, "I already sent a copy to the county sheriff's office." For a moment, the room was dead silent. Then she laughed, a short, nervous laugh, and said, "You don't know who you're dealing with. I run this neighborhood." I turned to leave but stopped at the door. "No," I said. "You think you do. But I've dealt with people worse than you." She didn't know that before I moved here, I'd spent 15 years working with the U.S. Marshal Service. My job wasn't just catching fugitives, it was protecting witnesses from people who abused power. People just like her. Later that afternoon, 2 HOA board members came knocking. "Karen says you threatened her with violence," one of them said awkwardly. "We might have to suspend your residency privileges." I just looked at them and smiled. "You might want to check your emails before you do that," I replied. They exchanged confused glances and pulled out their phones. I'd already forwarded them the footage, Karen, waving a gun, screaming at my daughter. Their faces turned pale. "Oh my God," one of them whispered. Just then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, and a deep voice said, "Mr. Walker, this is Sheriff Danvers. We received your footage. We need to talk." My heart started pounding, not because I was scared, but because I knew this was the beginning of Karen's downfall. But I also knew, she wouldn't go down quietly. 2 nights later, I saw headlights outside my house again, bright, blinding, parked right across the street. I looked through the blinds and felt that familiar chill crawl down my spine. It was Karen's car. She sat there with her phone, recording my house like she was building her own version of evidence. I walked outside slowly, phone in my hand, recording too. "You're trespassing again, Karen," I said calmly. "I already told the sheriff everything." She smirked from behind the wheel. "Oh, I'm just documenting. You're still violating HOA rules, those lights are above the permitted brightness level." I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. "You pointed a gun at my child, Karen," I said, stepping closer, "and you're worried about porch lights." Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You think you're the only one who knows people in law enforcement." She whispered, "Let's see who comes knocking first." The next morning, I found my mailbox ripped off and a notice taped to my door, "Eviction notice, HOA approved." It was fake, obviously, but it looked official enough to scare my neighbors. Some even stopped talking to me, afraid they'd be targeted next. Karen was spreading rumors that I was an ex-con pretending to be a family man. She told everyone I was violent, unstable, and dangerous. But I didn't lose my cool. I had learned long ago, people like her destroy themselves if you give them enough rope. So, I played it smart. That afternoon, I met Sheriff Danvers at the county office. He'd reviewed the footage and sighed heavily. "I've seen bad HOA cases," he said, "but this one's insane. However, she's claiming you doctored the video." I slid another flash drive across the desk. "That's footage from my neighbor's Ring cam. Different angle. Same night. Same gun." The sheriff watched for a few seconds, then muttered, "Well, that ends that." But before we could file charges, he got a call, and his face changed. "She just filed a restraining order against you," he said. "Claims you're stalking her." I almost laughed. "She's playing defense before the storm," I said quietly. He nodded. "Don't worry. We'll handle it right." Still, that night when I got home, there was a new problem. Someone had slashed the tires on my truck. And written across the hood, in red spray paint, were 3 words that sent a shiver through me. "Stay in line." I looked around the quiet street. Every window was dark. No one wanted to get involved. But I knew Karen wasn't acting alone anymore. Someone was helping her. The next morning, I walked down to the end of the street with my coffee, pretending to be calm. Every instinct in me was on alert. Karen's car wasn't there, but I could feel eyes watching. A few neighbors peeked through their blinds, whispering. One of them, old Mr. Collins, finally stepped outside and said quietly, "Son, you should know, Karen's been meeting with a man at the HOA office after hours. Black SUV, tinted windows. Not from around here." That was all I needed to hear. I went back home and checked the footage from my security cameras. Sure enough, 3 nights ago, 11:42 p.m., a black SUV had parked outside the HOA building. A man got out, tall, wearing a city inspector jacket. But there was no city meeting that night. I zoomed in on his badge. Fake. Printed on glossy paper. So that's who was helping her. Someone posing as a city official. Someone who could make fake notices, fake citations, maybe even fake eviction papers. I called Sheriff Danvers again. "Sheriff, you might want to run a plate. I think Karen's tied up with a fraudster." 2 hours later, he called back. "You were right," he said. "That plate belongs to a man named Victor Price. Former contractor. Arrested last year for impersonating government inspectors. Karen had teamed up with a criminal." Later that evening, I saw them together outside the HOA office, arguing. I recorded from a distance, using my truck camera. She looked scared now, not bossy. Victor shoved a folder in her hands and said something I couldn't hear, but she nodded quickly, almost trembling. When they left, I walked over and picked up a paper that had fallen from the folder. It was a forged deed transfer, my property, signed over to HOA custody. My chest tightened. They weren't just trying to find me. They were trying to steal my home. I went straight to the sheriff's office that night. He looked through the files I brought, the video, the paper, everything, and said, "Mr. Walker, we're about to make this official. You've just helped us open a fraud and weapons case." I felt a wave of relief, until I got home. The moment I stepped onto my porch, Karen was there again, waiting in the dark. "You think you're clever," she said quietly. "You ruined everything. You'll regret this. I didn't answer. I just pointed toward the red recording light above the door. She looked up, saw it, and froze. Then, for the first time, she backed away. That's when I said the line I'd been holding back since the day she pointed that gun. Karen, you aimed a weapon at my daughter. But you just shot your future instead. She didn't know it yet, but her whole life was about to come crashing down. 3 days later, my street looked like a movie set. Police cruisers, county vehicles, even a news van parked outside the HOA office. Neighbors gathered on their lawns whispering as officers carried out boxes of files. Karen stood on the porch in handcuffs, her hair a mess, screaming, "This is a mistake. I run this neighborhood." Sheriff Danvers didn't even look at her when he said, "You ran it straight into a federal case." Victor Price was arrested right beside her. The forged deeds, the fake notices, even the illegal firearm, everything was linked back to both of them. They'd been using HOA funds to run a side scam, threatening homeowners, extorting money, and forging property documents to take control of houses. Mine was supposed to be the next one. When the sheriff walked up to me, he said, "Your footage nailed the whole thing. Without it, they would have gotten away clean." I just nodded, watching as Karen screamed from the back of the patrol car. "You'll regret this, Walker. I'll sue you for everything." I smiled slightly. "You'll have to do that from your new home," I said. "The one with bars on the windows." The neighbors started clapping quietly. Mrs. Green, the woman who'd once avoided me out of fear, came over and whispered, "We're sorry we believed her. We didn't know." I just said, "Now you do." Later that evening, after the last police car left, I sat on the porch with Emma. She leaned her head on my shoulder and asked softly, "Daddy, is the bad lady gone?" I nodded. "Yeah, sweetheart. She won't hurt anyone again." The sun was setting behind the quiet street, the air finally peaceful. For the first time in months, it felt like home again. Before going inside, I looked up at the small camera light above the door, still blinking red, and said to myself, justice always watches, even when no one else does. That video didn't just save my home, it saved my daughter's safety, my neighbor's trust, and this community's soul. As for Karen, she learned the one rule she could never fake her way through: you can't threaten a man who knows the law better than you can break it. And when the local news later aired the footage with the headline, "HOA President Arrested After Pointing Gun at Child Over Fines," I couldn't help but smile. Because in the end, I didn't destroy her. She destroyed herself. You don't mess with a man protecting his child, especially when his camera sees everything. The end.